And finally, the winners for the AFCON 2023 tournament will be... The AFCON 2023 group stages is finally over, and now we get into my final predictions for the whole tournament. In these group stages, we saw some crazy upsets. We saw 4 times winners Ghana get 3rd place in their group and get knocked out. We saw Algeria and Tunisia finish last place in their group, and the host Ivory Coast make a surprise entrance into the knockout stages. But who will win the AFCON 2023? That is what I'm going to be predicting in today's video. So without further ado, let's get right into this video. The first matchup I'm going to talk about in the round of 16 is Nigeria against Cameroon. Both of these teams had a pretty good group stages, but to be honest, they could have been better. Nigeria finished in 2nd place behind Equatorial Guinea, and Cameroon also finished in 2nd place behind Senegal. But which of these two teams do I think is going to advance to the next round? I think it's going to be Nigeria. Nigeria are a fantastic team. I already said this in my last video, and I think that their attacking players is some of the best attacking players in the world, with players like Victor Boniface, Victor Osimhen, Samuel Chukwueze, Ademola Lookman, Iheanacho, Moses Simon. They have so many incredible attackers, and for that reason, I think they will overwhelm Cameroon, and I do think they will advance to the next round. Never rule out Cameroon because they are still a very good team, but in recent years, I do feel like they have fallen off, and for that reason, I think their AFCON 2023 will end here. Moving on to the next matchup, we have Angola versus Namibia. I feel like a lot of people didn't expect both of these teams to make it into the knockout stages, but Angola surprisingly finished in 1st place in the group that had Algeria in it. I feel like Angola are always a very slept on African nation, but in recent years, they have been improving their squad a lot. And for that reason, I do think they will have the upper hand over Namibia. Namibia, to be honest, didn't really have the best group stage as they only scored 1 goal in all 3 games. They finished with 1 win, 1 draw, and also 1 loss, and they did advance in that 3rd place qualification. But for that reason, I don't think they will be able to advance to the next round, and I do think Angola will win this matchup. Moving on to the next matchup, we have Cape Verde against Mauritania. Cape Verde had an incredible group stage performance as they finished 1st place in their group, ahead of Egypt, ahead of Ghana, and ahead of Mozambique. I feel like Cape Verde is such an underrated nation because they are just a very small island located off Western Africa, and their population is under 600,000, so they don't have a lot of people, and throughout history, they haven't been a very good footballing nation. But in recent years, they have really started to climb those rankings. And I said it in my group stage video that you have to watch out for Cape Verde, and I do think they will advance. And look what happened. They did end up advancing 1st place in their group. I'm calling this right now. I think Cape Verde will be the dark horses in this AFCON tournament. I think they will make it much further than what people expect. And I do think in this matchup against Mauritania, they will advance. Moving on to the next matchup, we have Morocco against South Africa. Bafana have made it into the knockout stages once again, and I do think in the group stages they actually played pretty good, better than what some people expected, and I do think their overall team is pretty good, but sadly they are coming against the favorites Morocco, and I don't think they really stand a chance. Like I already said, Morocco are the favorites in this competition. In the World Cup, they finished in 4th place as they beat some incredible nations like Spain, Portugal, and even Belgium. And even against Croatia, they played a fantastic game. And in this AFCON, for those reasons of what they did in the World Cup, I do think they are probably the favorites to win the whole tournament. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, the first matchup we got is Mali against Burkina Faso. Obviously, Mali played incredibly in their group stages as they finished in 1st place ahead of the likes of South Africa and Tunisia. And I feel like they have been playing a lot better than what people expected. But I don't think they will advance to the next round because I do think Burkina Faso will advance. Moving on to the next matchup, and this is probably the most anticipated matchup of the round of 16, and it is Senegal against Ivory Coast. In the group stages, Ivory Coast were on the brink of elimination as they finished in 3rd place in their group, and they would have gotten eliminated if Zambia ended up getting a draw in the last match day, but obviously they did end up losing, so that put Ivory Coast to advance to the knockout stages. But their performances in the group stages were absolutely horrible, and in their most recent game, they lost 4-0 against Equatorial Guinea, and they ended up sacking their manager. They are all over the place at the moment, and it is sad to see that I think the host nation, Ivory Coast, will get eliminated. Senegal are a fantastic team in terms of all the teams' performances in the group stages, they were the best team. They won every single game. They scored a lot of goals. And obviously, they are the current AFCON champions. And for that reason, I do think they will definitely advance to the next round. Moving on to the next matchup, we have Egypt against DR Congo. Egypt are a fantastic team, and throughout history, they are the best African nation as they have won the AFCON 7 times. But DR Congo have also been a very good team throughout history. They have always been producing a lot of great talent, and I do think this won't be an easy matchup for Egypt. Obviously, they did recently lose Mohamed Salah, who is a big part in their team. But I still do think they are the favorites to advance over DR Congo. So for that reason, I do think they will advance. And finally, the last matchup in the round of 16 is Equatorial Guinea against Guinea. This is the Derby of Guineas. Now, I know their countries aren't neighboring countries, but they are still both Guinea. But which Guinea do I think will win? I think it will be Equatorial Guinea. Equatorial Guinea in the last year have been doing incredibly, and it is honestly crazy to see because it's not a big country. They don't have a big population, but they're outperforming a lot of traditionally very strong African nations. Now, Guinea are still a very good team, and in the group stages, they did play pretty well, but Equatorial Guinea, I think, will simply outclass Guinea, and for that reason, I do think Equatorial Guinea will advance to the next round. Moving into the quarter-final fixtures, the first match we got will be Nigeria against Angola. This is going to be a very, very tough matchup because Nigeria have traditionally been incredible, and obviously, like I already mentioned, in recent years, I think they have produced some of the best attackers in world football. But you can never rule out Angola because in this competition, they have been playing very, very well, and I already mentioned they finished first place in their group, which Nigeria failed to do. Honestly, I think this is the toughest quarterfinal matchup to predict because realistically, any of these two teams could advance. But I think I'm going to give the edge to Nigeria. Like I already said, with that attacking lineup that they have and the experience that Nigeria have in multiple recent AFCON competitions, I do think they will have the experience over Angola to advance them to the semifinals. Moving on to the next matchup, we have Cape Verde against Morocco. Like I previously mentioned, I think Cape Verde are the dark horses in this competition. They are playing phenomenally as they did finish first place in their group. And I do think they will pretty easily beat Mauritania in the round of 16. But now into the quarterfinals, they're coming up against the favorites Morocco. And I don't know if they're going to be able to win. Like I already said, Morocco have that experience from the World Cup. They have been great in previous AFCON competitions. And I do think since they haven't changed really anything in their squad from that World Cup team, I do think they are the favorites to beat Cape Verde. Honestly, I would love it if Cape Verde can advance to the semifinals. And I do think it is still possible. But Morocco, I think, are simply a better team. And for that reason, I do think they will outclass Cape Verde and advance to the semifinals. Moving on to the other side of the bracket, the first matchup we have is Burkina Faso against Senegal. Like I already said, Burkina Faso are an incredible team, and I do think they are very, very underrated. But Senegal, I think, are the best team, and they are the current AFCON champions. I think their manager is phenomenal. Their team as a whole, in terms of their attack, their midfield, and their defense, will simply outclass Burkina Faso. And although I do think Burkina Faso do have a chance, I think this is probably the most guaranteed semifinal that Senegal will advance. Like I already said, Burkina Faso are an incredible team and they have some incredible players, but Senegal have that experience from last year, and for that reason, I do think they will advance to the semifinals. And finally, the last quarterfinal matchup is Egypt against Equatorial Guinea. This is going to be the toughest quarterfinal matchup in my opinion. I think Equatorial Guinea are going to surprise a lot of people, and I do think they have a really good chance against Egypt. Obviously, Egypt did recently lose Salah to, I think, a hamstring injury. And although Salah is probably their best player, we've seen in recent games that Egypt might play better without Salah on the team. Obviously, this is no disrespect to Salah because he is the best player in Egyptian history, and he is probably one of the best players in the last decade. But I don't think Egypt will be worse without Salah. I still think they are an incredible team, and I think they do have the better chance against Equatorial Guinea. Again, like I already said, I think this is the closest matchup of the quarterfinals, and any of these teams could advance to the next round. But I do think Egypt will be able to overtake Equatorial Guinea and advance to the semifinals. Moving on to the first semi-final matchup, we have Nigeria against Morocco. Realistically, I would absolutely love it if Nigeria could win the AFCON 2023. I have many people I know that are Nigerian. They have a lot of great players that I like. One of my favorite strikers, Victor Osimhen, plays for Napoli, is on Nigeria's national team, and I would love it if they can make it into the final. But I think Morocco's team is just too much quality in their team, and I think they will be able to beat Nigeria. Don't get me wrong, it will be a very, very tough game. I could see this game finishing as a 1-1 draw and going into extra time to decide who wins the game, maybe even penalties. But I think Morocco, again, with that experience from the World Cup, they have an incredible squad in terms of their attack, midfield, and their defense, and even their goalie. Bonu is one of the best goalkeepers in the world. Their manager has the experience, again, from that World Cup, and I do think that with this experience, they will be able to take down Nigeria, and I do think Morocco will advance to the AFCON 2023 finals. Moving over to the other side of the bracket, we have Senegal against Egypt. Like I've been saying for this whole video, I think Senegal are one of the best African nations this year, and although Egypt are still a very good team, they did lose Mohamed Salah, and it will be very unlikely that he will play in this game. So I think Senegal, with again their experience from winning the last AFCON competition, I do think they will be able to edge it over Egypt. I think this game will mainly come down to whose defense is better between Egypt and Senegal. And Senegal, I think, have class center backs, left backs. They have a great goalkeeper in Edouard Mendy. And with that very strong defensive lineup that they have, I think they will be able to overtake Egypt and advance into the finals. And finally, the moment you've all been waiting for, who will win the AFCON 2023? In my predictions, I think this is going to be an incredible match. I think it's going to be very, very close. Senegal are in the finals again, and Morocco are back in the AFCON finals. Who will win? It will be an incredibly close match, but I think Senegal will be the winners of AFCON 2023. I feel like a lot of people have been predicting Morocco to win the AFCON 2023, but I just feel like Senegal, especially with their incredible group stage performances where they were the best team out of all the other teams, I think they are the better team compared to Morocco. I think they have a better manager, they have better players, and I do think they will be able to outclass Morocco in this final. So my final prediction for the AFCON 2023 is that the current AFCON champion Senegal will be champions again. They will win it for their second time in a row, and I do think they will be able to beat Morocco in the final stage. And that is it for my final AFCON 2023 predictions. If you guys agree with my predictions, let me know in the comments down below. But obviously, if you have different predictions and you think Morocco are going to win, maybe Nigeria, maybe Egypt, or any other team, again, let me know your predictions in the comments down below. If you guys want to see my final predictions for the AFC Asian Cup, let me know in the comments down below. And obviously, if you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.